Hello, Ames Chamber of Commerce members. This is Drew Camp here for your January 24th and the second week of session legislative update. As you can imagine, there's not a lot that's happening down under the Golden Dome right now. A lot of it is just getting things in place to be able to move forward later in the session. There have been a few bills that have come out and some conversation that I will highlight here a little bit, but I do want to once again focus on the fact that we're going to hit on four key areas that are our key priority topical areas, which are talent, economic development, business climate, and infrastructure. And I'm going to touch on each one of those policies and some of the things that are happening within those. So when we look at talent or workforce and attracting workforce to the area, Invest in Iowa, that's the governor's new proposal to raise the sales tax by 1 cent. That's something that we really see as a positive in that direction to help people move here, create some placemaking, create some quality of life initiatives that make people want to be living in Iowa and stay in Iowa. Just to really quickly touch on the fact of what some of that entails is the implementation of Iowa Water and Land Legacy, $100 million to water quality, $50 million to recreation, trails, things along those lines. There are some child care pieces in there that some of that $540 million in new revenue would be put towards. One would be increasing the tax credit net income requirements from $45,000 to $90,000 to obviously broaden the pool of people who qualify for that. They would also address the cliff effect that allows people to fall out of the system if they get a raise or an increase in resources, which is not what we want to see, obviously, with an issue like childcare. So they would look at doing a tiered system that would address that issue. And then also the Employer Innovation Fund dollars that could go out and be granted to companies to invest in childcare for their employees. So those are some of those key pieces for childcare. The final thing is looking at mental health and the state taking over 70% of the appropriation needed to provide mental health throughout the regional system in the counties. One thing to watch really closely there, though, is that money would not be constitutionally protected like the Natural Resource and Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund from Iowa Water and Land Legacy. So we would want to make sure, if that was the proposal to look at that they're also making sure those funds stay protected and that we continue to see the ongoing revenue stream put towards mental health, and that's not chipped away at in the future. With economic development, the big thing this week that really happened with that is that the rural development bill that was attached to the angel investor tax credit bill at the end of last session has now been pulled off of that and is a separate bill. So we will now be working on those as two separate issues. We are for both of those bills to see those things move forward to grow rural Iowa, but also to get the angel investor tax credit passed, which is really important for those people putting money in seed money and venture capital into startup companies, many of like those coming out of the ISU Research Park, Startup Factory, and just Iowa State in general. As far as business climate goes, one issue that we always watch is there's some issues that can really have a negative impact on workforce. And workforce is our number one priority as the lowest unemployment metropolitan statistical area in the country. There is chatter about the possibility of proposing a constitutional amendment to limit or ban abortions. And the reason that I bring this up as a business climate talent issue is because that can really be an issue when you look at retaining and attracting employees. A lot of times they can look at things like this in the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, and they can look at that as through a negative lens and not want to work in or live in a state that has laws like that. So we're always really cautious when we see things like this come up because it can negatively impact our talent pool. So we'll continue to monitor that as the session moves on. Also, universal licensing is something that's a really big deal to a lot of our employers. And what that would really be is it would allow you, if you have a license for a professional certification in any industry, to transfer between states. But one thing that's really important to note in the proposal for this year is that you would be able to transfer basically all licenses except teachers and attorneys. So we do expect that one to kind of get some attention to be ironed out because there are a lot of professions that you have to be licensed in. So there's going to be a lot of stakeholders that have a vested interest in that. So we'll continue to watch how that goes moving forward. With regards to infrastructure, I will touch on the Iowa Water and Land Legacy. Once again, that 3/8 cents that goes to the Natural Resource and Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund, that's something that could really be transformational for infrastructure because not only does it go towards water quality, which is a big issue for our communities in all areas of the state, and then It could also go towards large projects, kind of similar to the Iowa Reinvestment Act we saw a few years ago, where they were allowed to use essentially sales tax dollars as a TIF to do projects like the Hilton Convention Center in downtown Des Moines. So we're thinking that we might want to be looking at doing something along those lines for large-scale quality of life and placemaking amenities and projects throughout our communities. So that's something that we'll be working on going forward, ironing out those details. But those are things that we really think could help with both infrastructure, business climate, economic development, and talent kind of all together, because they have a positive impact and have such a broad cross section that they impact because they are such major projects and investments throughout the state. One thing I do want to note is the fact that the Invest in Iowa Act, since that is getting so much attention, that 1 cent sales tax increase, according to the governor's office, it's currently being drafted. We should probably see some language on that next week, if not the week after that. So with that, that concludes my report for the second week of the legislative session, but please do come back and watch next week, as there is guaranteed to be additional progress being made towards our strategic priorities. Thank you and have a nice weekend.